to be proactive because we really want to create networking. So I will ask some questions, but if you guys don't mind, the floor is always going to be open if you have specific questions to ask. All right? So I would just like to start off by asking both of you how you found your opportunities, or it might be how you found multiple high potential opportunities, and how you tested it and how you decided to move forward on that.
Yeah, I can honestly say every time I thought it was late, I was actually extremely early, often by a decade or more. You always think you're late because you think there's 50 other people chasing you, and sometimes there are, and they're all early. Markets happen when they happen, and it's very hard to get. If what you want is a large exit, the chance of getting that timing right is rare. It's hard, and there is a lot of luck involved because lots of things can change that, from the economy to what big companies do to what a lot of small companies are doing. I mean, you just don't know. I've always, I think I've started or been involved in the starting of 6 or 7 companies, about the same number. Often timing wrong, always idea excellent, at least in my own mind. No, I mean, I got 17 patents. I mean, we've got issued and about 40 more pending. There's really a tremendous opportunity to invent out there. There really is. Whether it's in software or in hardware or in medical or medical devices or in clean tech and building materials and technologies, and you just go on and on and on. You can invent in any field you want to invent in. Truly, if you're an artist, you could invent something that helps in that field. I mean, really, you can truly invent anywhere you want. But the question is, is there a big audience for it? Are you passionate about it? Is the timing right? Do you care about an exit? By the way, there's an awful lot of people who will invent amazing things and build a $1 million company and make $100K a year from that and be happy the rest of their life and probably have no boss, and they might be happier than you or I are most of the time because the stress that comes with this level of entrepreneurship is very, very high. So there's nothing wrong with that, and there's a lot of people I know eventually make their way into what they call a lifestyle business, and that's what it is. And maybe they make more than that or less than that, but the point is they build sort of a small business that's going to go on for a long period of time. It's very inventive, it's very creative, and they do a great job with it, and they never have the pressure of a VC board or a bunch of people yelling at you or 5,000 employees or any of those things. They got themselves and 3 employees and a nice lifestyle business that will go beyond them and their kids and their grandkids and whatever. There's nothing wrong with that either. But I think some of these big ideas that take a lot of money, sometimes take a lot of money, and certainly he's had them and I've had them. They're big and you're swinging for the fences. And oftentimes that ball is not going to make it to the fence. It just doesn't. And what I like to say is this kind of innovation or disruptive innovation, you have to be willing to take that kind of risk. I mean, do not go into any of these. Don't go start something and say, well, it's just going to succeed. You're taking a huge risk. You're risking your life and your career, and you're risking your friends, and you're risking people laugh at you. You might risk your family because of the amount of hours it takes. And risk. So if you really want to be disruptively innovative, the risk comes with it. Shame comes with it because you're going to be wrong sometimes, and it's going to feel really weird, and it's going to feel bad because you were sure you were right. So entrepreneurs. We talked about this earlier today a little bit. I like to say now that at some level entrepreneurs are sort of born, not made. That is, you really almost have to be okay with taking this level of risk, this level of hurt, and this level of failure, because not everything's going to be successful. You're going to put your heart and soul in something, and 3.5 years later, it's dead, and you were sure it was a winner, and it might have been 3 years from now, but you ran out of money. Okay, stand up and do the next idea. That's what it really takes, and if you can't do that. Last story. Great guy who worked for me many years ago. He made a lot of money. He made $100 million or so. And I said, and he was working for me after. That's a lot of money. It's a fair deal. And he was working for me after that in sales, and he didn't need to work. Obviously, he was just doing it because he loved it. And I said, what brought you to make this kind of money? He says, well, I did startup after startup after startup, and fortunately, number 13, I hit it out of the park. Startup 13, startup 1 through 12, dead. Startup 13 made $100 million. It's very interesting. I mean, that takes a lot of guts. But he kept going, just kept going. And finally, he hit one out of the park. It takes a lot of perseverance.
Let me ask another question. Once you have that idea, one of the biggest challenges is putting your team together. Could Can you tell me a little bit about how you put your team together once you found this high potential idea?
So I was in a bungalow once in Tahiti.
So are you gonna tell us what happened in the bungalow?
Yeah, that's not part of the question.
Yeah, well, she ended up calling me because he ignored her. But here's the thing, it was for a good cause. I don't even remember the question, but I will say on exits, because we're talking about exits a little bit, in multiple times in my career, we thought we had something bigger and sort of walked away from what could have been large exits. And, generally, I mean, this is just generally speaking, right? Generally speaking, when you have a pretty decent offer on the table, it's better to take it. The risks going forward get larger and larger every month and every year. And there's a point at which being part of a larger organization reduces those risks. And of course, you get cash, you might get stock in the other organization, et cetera, and you can play that up for the next few years with a larger organization behind you. So just sort of a general rule of thumb, I've rarely seen people who turn down offers and later said, boy, I'm glad I turned down those offers. Once in a while, that does happen. I mean, clearly, Facebook had an offer we bought out at $15 billion, and they're likely to go public at $100 billion. Clearly, turning down the $15 billion probably made sense. But that's rare when you hear those situations. Usually, when they're a pretty decent offer, there's a reason they're a decent offer. Take the money, because you may never get an offer again like that in your life. And I've seen several of those go by where you go, I should have taken that. That was $100 million that I watched go by, and I never got that chance again. So that happens often. I don't remember the question, but anyway, we talked about exits a little bit. And
Well, no, it was about actually building your team.
oh, building your team. Yeah, he did build his team because those people were there.
The answers were far better than the question was.
No, I can building a team. I traditionally, when I start a new company, grab people that I already know. Let me tell you why. And this doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It doesn't mean you should do it. The devil you know is at least the devil you know. I'm not saying it's better than the devil you don't know, because you don't know what you're going to get. In fact, I will tell you, inevitably there are far better people that you don't know than you know. However, your chance of finding them versus finding trouble or problems or who knows. You don't know. At least when you bring in, when you first start and you bring in some people that you know, or are close friends or friends of friends or something, at least you know exactly what you're getting. Now, they may not be able to take you very far. It's often when I've built teams that, that first team is good for the first year and a half, maybe 2 years. They get you to the first 10 million in revenue, but they don't get you to 50 and they don't get you to 100. But that's okay. They took you as far as they could. But at least it was people you know, and it's good to surround yourself with people you know, because you just don't need a bunch of people problems at the beginning. You'll have those later, but you just don't need them at the beginning. You just want everyone bought in, everyone to be friends, and everyone to crank forward towards a goal. It's just a lot easier when you've already worked with someone that you go, here, you, come here, new role, here it is, need you here, leave your old company, come here, here's what I need you to do, and we're gonna have fun together, and we'll get some stock. So that's traditionally what I've done. Not everybody does that, but that's what I've done. You sort of did that at this company as well.
Yeah, but I'd add one thing to it, which is I tend to believe that the best answer is to hire people that know nothing about the market they're getting into. And so I realize it's probably contrarian, but the reason I believe that is it's very, very difficult to innovate in a market when somebody already has a strongly held view of how it exists and how it should exist.
All the people I brought into Surace, which is in the built environment space, no one was in the built environment before in their life. I mean, maybe they hung some drywall in college or something, but basically, they were all IT people. I mean, they came from Sun Microsystems and Oracle and Apple and other places. And I said, here, learn about insulation, drywall, and windows, and software to run buildings and things like this. And they said, we don't know anything about it. Well, but you're smart, and you will in a few months. And that actually worked really well. In fact, when I started Surace, we had a drywall product called Quiet Rock. I hired 2 consultants who were experts in drywall. Both of them said, don't come out with this product. It's the dumbest idea in the history of drywall. Fortunately, I didn't listen to either of them, and I came out with a product, and we shipped 2.5 million panels to date. So clearly, it was the right thing to do to come out with a product. But they couldn't see past the price issue. The price issue was pretty interesting. It was that drywall was selling at the time, call it rough numbers, call it $10 a sheet, and this stuff was, call it $50 a sheet. Well, it happened to replace basically 5, 6, 7, 8 layers of drywall plus the labor, so it was absolutely worth every penny. But they, their view was, well, you'll never sell anything more for $10, because people pay $10. Maybe they'll pay $10.05, but they'll never pay $11, let alone $50. Turns out they were wrong. They were actually spending the equivalent of 100 building the walls they were building in the way they were building them. But a drywall consultant couldn't see that. All he could see was the drywall. What he couldn't see was the wall. So my first sales guy was actually from that, because I couldn't find anyone to join me in sales. I heard someone from that industry, and he came back from his first show, and he said, no one will ever buy it because it's $50 instead of 10. I fired him on the spot. And I called my friend who was in semiconductors, Pam, and I said, Pam, I know you've been doing semiconductors, but how'd you like to leave that and do drywall? She says, you're crazy. No, come here, you'll like this. So sure enough, she comes in. She didn't care what the price of drywall is. She stepped back and said, let's see. It cost them about $10 a square foot to build a soundproof wall today, which is required in hotels and motels and condos and hospitals and schools and other buildings. It costs about $10 a square foot. We'll give them a way to build that for $6 a square foot. Oh, we're saving them money. So her view was immediately, look at how much money we're going to save them. Where a drywall guy's view was, look at how much more expensive our drywall is. Very, very, very interesting. But of course, a semiconductor solutions sales manager would see it as a solution sell, where a drywall guy could only see price and delivery. So exactly what.
Yeah.
what